I think that he knew what I was going to be the day I was born. I think he had this all planned out to find out how I would take this and how I would carry it. You know what I'm saying?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ratchet Christian. My name is Asmao, and I am the Ratchet Christian. Today, we have a very special guest. I was just letting him know that he's my first online guest. Usually, I film my podcast at a podcast studio, and I have guests come in person. But I have so many interesting people in my life that I want to talk to who live very far away. So I had to figure out a way to get them here on the podcast for us. And so Carlos is one of those people. Let me introduce you before I just start ranting. Everyone, welcome to the show, Carlos Camacho Jr. I'm gonna have to find a clap button to put there, but I will figure it out. Carlos, I'm so excited to have you on the Ratchet Christian podcast. How are you doing? How's your day going so far? I know you're in a different time zone, so this is the evening for you, but my day's just getting started. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Just been on the ground running. It's been very exhaustive doing what we're doing. Trying to scramble last minute to handle the situation at hand. But otherwise, God's good every day, and we're just progressing along with faith and courage, and ultimately, towards victory.
Amen to that. You had me on a homework assignment last night, man. I was up. I was up until 5:30 in the morning going over all of the documents that you sent me. You are a fantastic writer. You are truly an incredible writer. I read through your testimony that you sent, some of the short stories that you sent. I'm like, man, this guy should just be a writer. You're a phenomenal writer. I love your attention to detail, even though it kept me up until 5 a.m. It was worth it. I'm like, I want to do my job and do it well and be knowledgeable when my guests come on the show. So thank you for everything that you sent me about this topic concerning the SS United States. We are going to delve into it. But before we do that, I just want to tell the guests how we met. You and I met last year, towards the end of last year at AmFest. Here we are. I'm going to share some pictures with you guys. Look at us.
That's the crew.
Look at us. Okay, so cool. There we are again, a night out on the town.
That was a great night.
That was such a great night. That was so much fun. And I think this was the actual moment where I met you. You came up to me and we took a picture together. And then I think I have one more of just me, you, and Ryan hanging out. And then the guy photobombed us in the back. But yeah, so we met at AmFest and we kind of formed this collective group that I feel like you were just the leader. You just took charge as we were trying to get ourselves organized. Where are we going to eat? Where are we going to go for this after party? You're like, follow me, guys. I have a plan. And it was really fun. How was that experience for you going to AmFest in December?
It was absolutely phenomenal. It was a divine experience. I know at that time, I was kind of a little weathered by, what was going on and transpiring. I mean, ultimately that trip in itself was a testimony in itself. I mean, just the whole process of getting there and all the miracles that happened along the way. And then ultimately the friendships that grew from it. So for me, it was a revitalizing moment, in this entire process, and really gave me the strength to go on and do more. So, the bonds that we experienced there and through the leadership and events that we attended, I mean, it was a really great experience. I walked away from it truly humble and, just refreshed in what we're doing as a movement, as a united front, of people that want to bring change to the world and to the nation.
Right. And you're a conservative, I also am a conservative. And so we met at a conservative, one of the most conservative gatherings in the United States. But it ended up being so fun. My favorite part of AmFest was the people that I met there. It was you all and the little group that we formed. And we were there from Wednesday, some of us until Sunday. I think I ended up leaving on Saturday. But during that time, we just kept finding each other, and we were intentional to stay together and hang out. And one of my prayers before I went to AmFest, I was invited to come do comedy. I was like, okay, after I do comedy, I'm still gonna be here for like 3 or 4 days. Like, I don't want to be lonely. Like, Lord, I just pray that I find like a cool group of people to hang out with, and people who are gonna show me the ropes, because it's like you're familiar to kind of like the political world, and going to these like events that take place in these types of spaces. But that was my first kind of like conservative gathering, and you all made it so 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 much fun. And it was during that time that you spoke a little bit about the SS United States. I had never heard about it before. Um, you told me that it was like a ship that they planned on like sinking, and all these things that you are going to go into further detail about. I just went ahead and pulled up a quick little snapshot of like a little synopsis of the ship, and then you can go ahead and tell us a bit more about it. So I found this on Google. It says that SS United States is a historic 990-foot American ocean liner launched in 1952, renowned as the fastest passenger ship ever built, capable of exceeding 38 to 40 knots, designed by William Francis Gibbs for both luxury travel and rapid troop transport. It featured, according to the SS United States Conservancy, advanced fireproof and military-grade construction. Currently, the vessel is set to become the world's largest artificial reef off the coast of Florida. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, it's pretty accurate. There's a lot more to it. So I mean, she is everything that was just mentioned in that article. She also stands, what a lot of people don't realize, is as the symbolic flagship of the United States Merchant Marine,
Mhm.
which is one of our oldest institutions in our nation's history. They quite literally helped birth our national anthem in the War of 1812.
Mhm.
A lot of people don't understand. That it wasn't just Fort McHenry who made the stand. It was actually merchant mariners who sunk their vessels in the harbor to prevent the British from landing. So
Mm.
ultimately, as we get ready to celebrate this 250th anniversary and sing the national anthem, we can thank merchant mariners in the United States Merchant Marine for that act of heroism.
Mm.
This is a institution that goes back to 1775, particularly Machias, Maine, where they performed the first naval engagement of the Revolutionary War. This is an act that ultimately birthed our United States Navy.
Wow.
So this vessel, I mean, this service has gone into so many different wars throughout American history, has provided every step of the way. They provide our commerce and trade today, as well as our strategic sea lifts. As you see what's going on right now with the war across the seas, they're
Right.
amping up and bringing supplies and everything to our troops. I mean, they're so strategic, yet have been ultimately, and I hate to say it, forgotten over time. And only under this administration are they starting to be recognized. Actively right now, the United States Merchant Marine Academy at Kings Point is being revitalized by President Trump
Mhm.
under the Maritime Executive Order, the Maritime Dominance one.
Mm.
That's at the direction of Secretary Duffy. So ultimately, it's a sad situation to see such greatness happening under this leadership, and then ultimately turn the page and say that less than a year later, after they celebrated their 250th, their symbolic flagships about to be sunk in the Gulf of America during our
Mhm.
celebration. I mean, it's the optics of that is very very bad,
Mhm.
and ultimately it's un-American. So if we really bring that back to what's going on, it's a point of matter where Americans need to rise. Our administration needs to focus and see what's going on, because we have a solution. We don't just have a problem, which I'll be speaking about here, but we have a solution that only the president's hand can solve, and
Mm.
I mean that quite literally. So it's when you think about this vessel, she just represents 75 years, 30% of our 250 years as a maritime nation, and she is so significant to our history. She's touched almost every political figure you can imagine. From the Kennedys to Eisenhower to
Yeah.
Marilyn Monroe. I mean, you go down the list. There's a ton of history here. She is absolutely the fastest ocean liner in existence till
Mm.
today, 74 years later.
Wow.
She stole that record from the Queen Mary out there by you, actually, in Long Beach.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the Queen Mary held that record for about roughly 14 years
Mhm.
before the United States came on the scene, and she actually won it in American fashion. It was actually during our 4th of July celebration, because she was released on the 3rd of July. She broke the record in both directions, going to a transatlantic crossing to Europe and back. Beat the Queen Mary by over 10 hours. I mean, this vessel is just, it's, between her construction, under the government subsidies, between the Navy and Pentagon and Maritime Administration, to her historic, transatlantic voyages, to just her perseverance through every weather of storm that she's faced over the years that she's been out of service. I mean, it is ultimately an amazing love story with an ocean liner that truly defines, what American heroism and patriotism and perseverance really is. You think about our story and what we've persevered through for 250 years, starting with our forefathers. I mean, ultimately, it's the heart of the American spirit that drives us, that pushes us forward into existence. And this is a vessel that literally has our name etched in her bow. I mean, this is something significant. So to think about this without getting drawn on about it, it's so it's devastating that anybody would even consider this to be a good idea, and that's getting it before we even get into the details of what's going on.
Right. So I want to give people an image of the ship that it is that we're talking about, so people can have a point of reference as this conversation goes on. So this is the SS United States in its heyday, right? Like, this is it at its peak. Like you said, it's the fastest ocean liner that's ever been built, even still to this day. And this is...
That's actually that first one was actually her on her speed trials. It's actually an interesting story about that. So not only was she, on her speed trials was she so fast, and she was quoted to possibly get up to 48 knots, but she could go in over 20 knots in reverse, faster than if you take a lot of people know the Titanic, as fast as the Titanic could go and forward, she could go in reverse. I mean, this ship was just absolutely phenomenal.
Wow.
But yes, going to the other picture is more devastating.
Yeah, and so this is what it currently looks like now. I think this is when it was docked in Mobile, Alabama. Don't quote me on that, but I know that it's been docked in it's been docked in Alabama, and then where else? Was there like another place where it was docked for like along Philly? I think Philadelphia too.
So, yeah, so she was actually in Philly prior. When she was in Philly prior, she was there for almost nearly 30 years under different ownership. She's had a few different ports over the years. She is currently still in Mobile at the moment. They are doing what they are considering remediation of toxins to deploy her as the world's largest artificial reef. Obviously, we have a difference in opinions considering the laboratories, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But they actually, that was day one over the summer where they had removed both funnels and the radar masts. Since then, they've cut multiple holes into the vessel outside on her interior deck spaces, pulled things out. She looks like a vessel without a crown. She still holds her beauty, but and of course, any of these things can be reattached. With the right hands. These are things that would have had to happen had we needed to revitalize her, but they're not doing that. They're doing it in order to essentially remove her from the register, which she's historically significant on, as well as to deploy her into the Gulf as an artificial reef for dive tourism and fishing. So ultimately, sad story.
It is. And I have a video clip that basically summarized everything that you just said from the mayor of, Pensacola, Florida, who is agreeing to, sink this vessel, and the other parties that are kind of for the dismantling of this vessel. So let's go ahead and play this short clip for the audience.
The SS United States once crossed the Atlantic at record speed. Now it could rest on the Gulf floor. Last year, Okaloosa County bought the retired ship with plans to sink it and create the world's largest artificial reef.
She has a magnificent history. We're going to continue to tell that history as the world's largest artificial reef with the Conservancy's land-based museum.
The ship is currently docked in Mobile, Alabama. It's in the inspection phase after months of environmental remediation, making sure it's safe to deploy.
Almost 90% done with that remediation, removing all the wiring, all the stuff that's going to be harmful for the environment. Now we're in the inspection phase, so all the federal agencies that need to inspect an artificial reef before she's deployed are on the vessel periodically this month and in the coming weeks to make sure everything is safe and sound.
County leaders say the project is already paid for. Funding comes from tourism bed tax revenue and several major partners like Visit Pensacola.
And I actually think the way that it's been handled, this kind of we'll put some money in and move it a little bit closer to our thing is really the best case scenario, I believe. I think it can.
Yeah, so that basically sums up what it is that you were saying, where it's docked, what they're trying to do to it. And my question to you is, you mentioned the Queen Mary earlier, which I feel like is a perfect example of what can be done with this ship. You know, we have an example of, you know, retiring a ship and still allowing it to be emblematic and symbolic of, you know, a prior time. And people are able to still go and visit the Queen Mary. One of my friends recently, one of my husband's friends recently got engaged on the Queen Mary. We have like haunted Halloween nights on there. Like the Queen Mary is a part of downtown Long Beach. We've integrated it into our culture in California, and it's revered, you know, it's a symbol of Long Beach. And so why not? Okay. My question is, how did we allow this ship, her, because I've been paying attention to you referencing the ship as her. And so does everyone who's very passionate about this topic. And so moving forward, I'm going to refer to the ship as her. How did they allow her to deteriorate to this point after, you know, the historical role that she has played in America? Do you know who's responsible, or how did we just allow this ship to fall to the wayside when she's played such a vital role in American history?
Yeah, so before I answer that question, I want to go back to your previous statement about the Queen Mary. Queen Mary is beautiful. She's a beautiful vessel, and I don't want to ever answer a question and make it seem like she's not. She's an absolute beautiful, remarkable vessel. You obviously get to experience that over there on the West Coast. She's also just did recently the amazing New Year's celebration they just did. And she's going to be hosting a 250th celebration for what I believe is a soccer event coming to Long Beach area, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, this is a vessel that is quite literally being lifted up during America 250. And not that she's not unworthy of it, but, you know, this is a vessel that's being lifted up on American soil as a foreign flagged vessel.
Oh, really?
That's had taxpayer dollars put towards it. And you know, again, she's beautiful. She's a great asset to the area, but we literally have our first lady of the seas over here about to be drowned in the Gulf. And, you know, nothing's been put towards that. So when you think about the concept of what we're celebrating on our 250th, you know, we are essentially celebrating our breakaway from England and, you know, our triumph and the struggles that we overcame to become the nation we are today. So when you think about lifting up the crown jewel, which is what the Queen Mary was in her prime, during our celebration while we drown our first lady, I mean, that's got symbolic nature in itself. You know, when you really think about that, you know, and I don't mean to paint the Queen in a bad way, because she is a beautiful vessel. But to every patriot listening, you know, that's what we're facing, is the optic of that. But to answer your recent question, the reason why she's been so poorly judged and has become into this situation is
And
quite
neglected, really. I'm like, she's been neglected.
Yeah, it's quite literally starts with the fact being that she was retired at 17 years of age. That's really young for an ocean liner. And that wasn't due to her and herself, you know, because at the end of the day, that every ocean liner got retired relatively soon after that, because of the fact being of air travel. Air travel became so popular with transatlantic crossings that the day of the ocean liner crossing the seas had ultimately ended. Nowadays, you see most vessels, you know, as cruise liners, you know, going to port, you know, Bahamas or wherever, but nobody's truly doing traditional crossings except for, guess what? England. Queen Mary too. They're the only vessel that's doing it for the most part as a true transatlantic ocean liner. So, you know, when you look at how that plays out, you know, with her being retired at 17 years of age and then going through the Naval Reserve, through MARAD when she was owned, ultimately being sold to the private public sector, and then every steward that had her over time ultimately looked at her as a cash cow.
Mhm.
Let's just call it what it is. She has always been a cash cow. When you look at the first owners, they were trying to put her back to service to make more money. Yes, that was her prime purpose, but they were kind of misguided efforts. Tension was there, but as anything is said, it goes off the rails at some point or another when you go outside the balance of what's supposed to be happening. And then ultimately preservation efforts that were underway by organizations. The intent was there, that was good. However, not removing the vessel, her, from the location that which she was at actually plagued her too, because she was locked up in Philly. And it was a beautiful spot for most to see. I mean, you could see these beautiful, gorgeous funnels coming over the bridge. You could see her from the IKEA sector over there at the building. I mean, I have a great testimony about that. I mean,
I read it last night. It was beautiful.
thank you.
And I love the pictures that you
Yeah,
included.
absolutely. Thank you. Absolutely majestic. So the city of Philadelphia, they loved it. She was a part of their skyline. However, being locked behind a TWIC controlled space, with only TWIC card access, that basically damned her from the public eye, being locked behind a fence. And ultimately, not to bash any prior stewards, it's just the absence of doing some of the things that our foundation and the coalition and a few other preservation groups have done recently to get the mark out. I mean, it hasn't brought the spotlight out. I mean, even the county itself, that's doing this. Yes, they've brought attention to her for the first time in years. However, it's the wrong attention. As a county that prides itself in America 250, and and many of their postings, and as a traditionally red county, mind you. To sink the United States in the Gulf of America during America 250 under this very administration, I mean, that's telling in itself. And I think it's a decision that the commissioners of that county should really reconsider, especially while we're during war. I mean, we're literally about to give our adversaries a gift during this war. And during this great celebration, a symbolic one that would ultimately show the United States in a symbolism of defeat. Who would actually sink a vessel that bears our name during this time and during an active war. So ultimately, that's really where she's led to poor stewardship. And that's ultimately why we're hoping the federal government will intervene through our actions we'll speak about shortly.
Okay. So to clarify for our audience, hopefully they're following along. This was the ship at its origin. And this is her now. And what is it Pensacola? Yes, in Pensacola, Florida, what they're trying to do is sink this vessel so that they can make a artificial reef. And for those of you who don't know what that is, I was able to get this AI overview. Artificial reefs are human-made underwater structures such as sunken ships, concrete balls, or decommissioned oil rigs placed on the seafloor to mimic natural reefs. They create habitats for marine life, support biodiversity, assist in coastal erosion control, and offer recreational opportunities for diving and fishing. So this is what the new owners are wanting to do with her. And your perspective is that, hey, this is a historical ship that, means a lot to our history. And it would look bad to be sinking it for tourism purposes, especially on our 250th year anniversary of our country, and I agree with you. I agree with you. And one of the articles that you had, or one of the short stories that you had written or shared with me, one of the most interesting parts of it was when you shared that she actually was the ship that brought over the Mona Lisa. And that the Kennedys were passengers of that ship. And so I have a picture from what you had shared with me. Do I have your permission? Is when the two gentlemen are taking the Mona Lisa out of or putting the Mona Lisa back into the cargo ship. Could I share that image?
Yeah, so two things. So you can absolutely share any of those images. Those are public images. That's perfectly fine. And just for a quick clarification, just because I don't want to call out the wrong county. So Pensacola is a semi-partnering with the Okaloosa County. It's actually Okaloosa County. It's always hard to say that. It's the Okaloosa County Commissioners, who are a private government entity who have purchased the vessel and intend to sink this as an artificial reef. Wow. Pensacola essentially and surrounding counties are trying to to take part in the measure. So just want to be clear on that. So we're not painting anybody in the wrong light, but it's Okaloosa County, Florida, who their county commissioners who have authorized this deployment of a vessel as an artificial reef.
So it's a team effort. It's a team effort from say it again. Pensacola. Yeah, say it again.
So Pensacola is adjacent to them, as well as Escambia County and a few other different counties that are local. But it's actually Okaloosa County, Florida, which is District 1, under Congressman Petronus's district. They're the ones that are actually sinking the vessel and have the permit that they're trying to use, which I'll get into that one in a little bit. But that, just for clarity with that. But with regards to the Mona Lisa, so she took it home. It was actually, this is even better story actually, because it goes to show you a beautiful relationship with France, right? So for the SS France, which was essentially the flagship of France, the same equivalent as the SS United States, this is America. The SS France, at the direction of Jacqueline Kennedy as First Lady, requested that the Mona Lisa be transported to the United States for special viewing, which took place for over 2 weeks in metropolitan area as well as a few other areas. And then ultimately, the United States was trusted to take the Mona Lisa back to France. I mean, that's no small task in itself, when you think about how important the Mona Lisa is. And at the personal direction of Jacqueline Kennedy. And she had such a love for, cultural status and things that go on in the cultural realm and stuff and history. And, for her to be tied in with that, it was just a phenomenal situation. And then for her and the president, JFK, they traveled many times aboard, including his earlier years as senator. So, I mean, they have direct roots and connections to this vessel over several periods of time, as well as other presidents and historical figures. So it's just a fascinating story that the United States was selected to handle literally the prize of France. And when you think about that, that can translate to another story quickly, I'll say, and that's the Statue of Liberty. We revere the Statue of Liberty so much today, right? And that was a joint operation between France and the United States then. And a lot of people might not realize, and this is relevant to what we're facing today, but the Statue of Liberty was almost not built. We didn't have the pedestal back then. We couldn't afford it. We wouldn't fund it through the government process. And ultimately, believe it or not, it was a small news article company out in France who couldn't come to terms with the United States not wanting to erect this or fund it. And it was through his news articles and then ultimately school children and poor individuals who funded the pedestal in order to make the United States put together for what we revere her to as today. Because ultimately at that time, she was in pieces. I mean, quite literally, her head, everything there was no pedestal, no nothing. So when you think about the power of the people to rise together, and especially when you talk about not even just nationally, but globally and through partnerships, I mean, it's really symbolic. I mean, you can go out to England and other places. I mean, like the way they review their history, England, for example, I mean, the beautiful castles they have and ships and everything else. I mean, like they really revere their culture. But ultimately, us as Americans have come to the point where we are essentially discarding or recycling our monuments and our statues and our culture. And it's really come to a point, where we have to stop doing that. We need to understand our identity and our image as a nation. And quite frankly, this vessel reflects that, because this is also a vessel that at the time, literally all the 48 states at the time had a contribution to this vessel and building it. I mean, parts from all around the nation came. World War II veterans and American shipbuilders built her. They put down the weapons of war and picked up the tools of hope. I mean, like this is something absolutely phenomenal. You will never see ever again. She is unique in every way. And, people need to realize that.
Yeah, definitely. She is one of a kind. And outside of just, sinking it being not something that's productive for the American image or good to get rid of because it's a part of history, there also might be some environmental consequences if we do. And so I was able to pull up a clip from I don't know if he was a marine biologist or if he's a scientist. He's an expert, and he's talking about why possibly, sinking this vessel could not be good for the environment. And so I'm gonna play the clip, and then you can expound further on that.
Now I understand that there's desire to do this project to bring in potentially more visitors, bring in potentially more revenue for the county, which is a great, I totally support that. My concern, though, is that this is a very large vessel. It was built at a time when the use of zinc chromate and hexavalent chromium in corrosion-resistant paints were used heavily, and this vessel is absolutely full. I provide a document to you to review, where I go through a calculation to understand that and kind of estimate what the loadings are. And I will just tell you that we went on a very conservative estimate by trying to kind of get an average square footage of a vessel of this size. I used a lot of artificial intelligence opportunities, to search for vessels and find what an average would be. But our estimates here, I believe, are very conservative. And when we get down to the brass tacks of how much hexavalent chromium is being added to the environment, it's staggering. And I want to warn about this, because not only does this impact our environment, it impacts the animals and both the vertebrates and invertebrates that live there. But once they've taken on this body burden of toxicity, that also translates to people. So seafood is at risk here in and around these areas. The sediments can be poisoned by this stuff for millennia. It's not that it.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so that's actually for anybody, if you could provide that link. That is an excellent video testimony from an expert, Dr. Todd Osborne. It goes into the entire process of the dangers involved in sinking a vessel without fully properly remediating it, which is currently what the county's doing, because they have only tested for PCBs to date and none of these other toxins. So therefore, these laboratories, which we'll talk about, will ultimately end up in the Gulf. So let people understand what he's talking about. First and foremost, that's Dr. Todd Osborne. He is a biogeochemist and marine bioscience professor, and yields many doctrines and different studies of the marine aquatic area sector of sciences. But he is well conditioned in speaking for toxicology and chemical components. So at the end of the day, he weighed in on it. He reviewed the documents we had, as well as provided his own reports and also historical documentation, which can be found through the archives of what was actually used in the constructive coatings of this vessel. The zinc chromate that he speaks of in his testimony, that is a substance. It's a metal. It is something that it's a prime coating that the naval institutions used early 20s to 50s and even into the late 60s. It is something that was heavily used on this vessel, particularly because William Francis Gibbs, who was quite literally arguably the greatest naval architect in American culture, he used this heavily because this vessel was his baby. This was his dream child, 40 years in the making. Mm-hmm. This was everything put into one. I mean, he literally designed 80% of the World War II fleet, that helped us win the war. So, I mean, this was his baby. He finally got to do, and he went overboard with zinc chromate so that way she would be preserved. So you're talking about 2 to 3 layers of zinc chromate applied internally and externally systematically on this vessel. Mm-hmm. That equivalates basically to about 59,000 pounds of zinc chromate in his studies. So to give you perspective, anything over 10 pounds is reportable to the National Response Center. So 59,000 pounds of it is well over limits. And a newsflash for a lot that don't realize is that, within this zinc chromate is hexavalent chromium CR6 and other different types of chromates, including trivalent chromium, total chromium, and also zinc itself, mm-hmm. which is reflected in our labs, which we will release once we get the approval from the federal regulatories. But this is something that is 5 to 6 orders of magnitude higher than the EPA and World Health Organization standards. This is something that is found readily in this coatings. And ultimately, if it gets put into the Gulf, because I want to make this clear, she's not dangerous above the water. She's been, fined for 74 years. You can, modify this. You can perform maintenance and encapsulate, do all these different things to do protective coatings as a reestablishment of the vessel. This is common in many practices, both for static attractions as well as seagoing vessels. However, vessels were never meant to actually purposely be sunk.
Right.
So when you purposely put it into the water and you can no longer treat it physically or scientifically, now that's where the problem becomes, because the Gulf seawater ultimately acts like a battery, and you have a multitude of different processes that happen. So let's first take, zinc chromate itself. When it goes into the water in an oxygen-rich environment, as Dr. Todd Osborne speaks about, where this vessel is going to be, because the fish have to be there, have oxygen in order to survive, this stuff will readily leach into the environment. It will go into the sediment. It'll go into crustaceans. Then it'll go into, organisms to crustaceans to reef fish, and then predatory fish, and then ultimately up to, guess what? Humans.
Right.
Human consumption. So, this is stuff that's biodegradable, and it's, bioaccumulates into the organisms, vertebrates and invertebrates, like he said. And ultimately, this is something that's going to be uptaked. And then when you throw in the fact being that people are going to be diving on it.
That's what I'm saying. Like, people are, they want people to like go and play around this thing, and it being like a tourist attraction. It's like
largest organ in your body, skin.
Right.
So at the end of the day, this is something that's particular, even though you have wetsuits, as I've seen a lot of pro individuals who want to sink the vessel say, guess what, wetsuit or not, this is a long term experience that, will ultimately affect you, because not every part of your body is covered by a wetsuit.
Exactly.
So, and it doesn't justify the fact of putting this into the Gulf seafood supply or the marine environment, because ultimately in that area, another thing that to worry about is there's endangered species. There's several endangered species on endangered species list that are active out there. That, between Ridley turtle and other different whales and stuff like that, and sawfish, fish, and there's all kinds of different endangered species that could potentially be affected by this. And let's also talk about the fact being that this is not a closed environment like Hinckley, California, where it's say it's a closed C6 pond or something like that, like county officials have said before. This is an open water environment. The fish migrate. They go to other reef sites. There's a lot. There's two specific marine sanctuaries, including the dry tortugas that are out there. I mean, so this is where they can go out there. They can breed. It'll go in their offspring. I mean, this is a serious problem over time. And you're not talking about, okay, this is going to happen tomorrow and then it's done, next year. This is something that will be generational, could go for millennia. And on top of that, this vessel also contains another process which is equally damaging, and that's the fact being that this vessel it's got 2,100 long tons of aluminum in her superstructure. This is aluminum cladding that's attached to steel. It is quite literally the largest amount of aluminum ever used in a single man-made structure before the World Trade Center, to give you a reference. And ultimately, what happens is there's a process called dissimilar metal corrosion or galvanic corrosion. And what that means is that the aluminum that's attached there, that cladding, it self-sacrifices in the salt water, acts like a battery, and then ultimately breaks down to parts into the water in order to protect the steel. So when you think about how much zinc chromate's on this vessel, including all those aluminum cladding, well, now you're expediting the process of zinc chromate being released with the hexavalent chromium in it into the Gulf water supply. So ultimately, what you are left with is a Superfund site. And Superfund sites are very expensive, they're long lasting, and ultimately very taxing. And I don't mean that just from the perspective of burdening just the federal agencies. I mean that as if the federal agencies can't go after the county or anybody else involved in this process to recover and recoup the process of paying for it, well, that ultimately falls on the taxpayer dollars, including the ones that are represented by the county officials. So this is a very real project, a very real situation. And it's one that really needs to be reconsidered and maybe slow down a little bit. I know their intention's good. I know that they went into this in a good sight, but I think they just weren't informed. And, we have tried to inform them time and time again as a foundation in multiple public meetings, but it's really fallen on deaf ears, which is why we are now part of the federal process, and we are working with the Army Corps as a consulting party, as well as other different consulting parties, both for historical significance, as well as trying to get the information to federal agencies like EPA and everything else. So very, very extensive situation, but it's ultimately going to have long-lasting effects if we're not careful with this. Not just optics, like you said, but also to the environment, and then ultimately public health. We're in a situation now where we're calling out MAHA, right? Like, make America health again. Do we really want to have public health incidents nationwide? I mean, because when you look at Hinckley, California, with the Aaron Brockovich case, there were women there that had to have seriously crazy reproductive surgeries and all kinds of things because of how bad this toxin is. That's why we regulate it. It's highly regulated by multiple statutes and regulatory agencies, even though the narrative right now is out there that it's not, which was given by county officials. But it's highly regulated, and it even says it in its best management practice document that they're using to reef the ship. I encourage anybody listening from the county or anyone else, look at page 15. State and federal regulations, they apply, and there's a multitude of them that apply to this chemical. So before you put yourself in a liability situation, and before anybody else has to endure any kind of cost or significant impact, I really strongly urge you to pay attention closely to the regulatory agencies and the laws that apply to this particular chemical that's on this thing. So yeah, I mean, that's the short end of that. I mean, there's just so much that goes into it, but it's a real whammy. And we are at the federal levels. Like I said, we're talking to the Army Corps. We're talking to Congress, congressional offices, and senatorial offices. We're talking to interior spaces and stuff that handle the regulatory agencies and other things. So we are where we need to be, but the record has not been appropriated the right way to the public, and that's ultimately why we're here and why we're trying to do what we're doing, is to bring advocacy. Because ultimately, guess what? Preservation is not just history. Preservation is also of our coastal waters and our fellow Americans.
Just to provide some context too, when you say we are, you are talking about this organization, the SS United States Preservation Foundation, that you co-founded. So when you say we, it's not just a one-man army that's going about this, although you're definitely, I would say, spearheading the activism and the charge and getting the word out about this ship. But this is your logo. You have a foundation, and if you would like to, please tell us more about that. How you got it started, your team, anything that you want to share about this foundation, because like you said, you it's going federal. We won't disclose which governmental bodies that you're talking to, but you're not just talking about it online. This is something that you're going into political spaces and you're advocating for in a very, very real way. So tell us more about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. This is definitely not a solo endeavor. We are a team. We are, we're rowing together in the same ship. So at the end of the day, we're in this together, and we're not just the foundation itself. We're also backed by thousands of, well over 20,000 American patriots, both worldwide and nationally, that back both the foundation as well as the New York Coalition, who's our sister preservation entity. But for the foundation, we came into this as lovers of American history, of preservationists, and obviously lovers of the sea. A lot of us are either mariners or in some way, shape, or form attached to the sea and the love for it. We were supporters of previous groups, including the previous owners, who advocated for the vessel. Their intentions were good. We donated, a lot of us, and we gave our support over the years to see her preserved. And then ultimately we got what we feel like was a white skull, in a sense, just got blindsided by the news that she was being sold to be reefed. And ultimately, not only did the public stand up and stand out, but we ended up as individuals coming together to form the foundation. So we kind of formed quietly behind the scenes and accumulated all the evidence and stuff that we needed to find and do with regards to trying to fight this fight. This did start out as a preservation effort for one, for trying to save the vessel itself. It was a reactionary cause. But through our studies of the historical documents and other different areas, we did come into the realm of environmental and realize that, there's far more to this entire story than just preserving her. Obviously that's still at the core goal of our organization, is to save her, but we have a duty as preservationists to also protect the people in our coastal waters. But when we got started back in early 2024, I would say late mid 2024, we were, as we are now, grassroots. We were just a small grassroots. And I kid you not, this is like a David versus Goliath battle here. This is a county that has, roughly 82 million in their coffers. We're small time when it comes to financial means. However, our heart and our spirit is pure. It runs deep, and our supporters too. So, that's a lot more rich in itself.
Right.
And ultimately, we want to make sure that we are doing the right thing by history, by future generations, and ultimately by what the history books will record. So we are just small voices, like many others before us, who answer the call and are ultimately pressing forward to victory, no matter the cost. And we're going to keep doing so until she's saved and she comes home.
Beautifully said. My last question for you is, what has so captivated you about this ship? What, if you could summarize it, and I did read your testimony, it was absolutely beautiful. I know that it goes very deep for you, your passion for this vessel, your calling to keep it going. But on the days that you feel kind of like, you're just screaming out into the ether and no one's hearing you, and, maybe you feel like, okay, we might not accomplish this. Like, what keeps you going? What is it about this ship that has so captivated you that you want to see this through to the end, to save her and to make sure that she remains in history as the monumental figure that she is?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's two factors involved. There's a personal testimony there, which I've never really shared publicly before, and I feel inclined to do it now. But
Please do.
And there's the fact being that who's the author of that, and that's him on the wall. God.
Come on, somebody, that's Jesus. Yeah.
So that's it. Ultimately, I have a passion, and I think to understand it, there's a struggle throughout the nation, one that is connected to my personal testimony in one way or another. And that's ultimately, when you look at our veterans and you look at the American public and the trials that people go through, a lot of people suffer from anxieties, depressions, suicidal thoughts, struggles, monetarily, all kinds of different things that lead into one way or another where people lose hope. People, whether you're a believer or not, you get to a breaking point where, you just feel like giving up. And ultimately it's when you lean in and you embrace the spirit within, you find that hope for a brighter future. And for me, how she became to be, this is quite personal, and I'm going to share it for the first time here, is that, I was employed with a company back until 2019. And in 2019, I had a devastating injury happen to me, to my spine. Essentially shattered from my L4 to S1 completely, where I barely could walk. I went through a serious struggle. They fired me on the spot because of it. Had no workman's comp, no unemployment, no insurance. My family and I went through a serious struggle for many years. I walked in, ultimately started walking a little bit, but it was great pain. I couldn't carry the same energy I used to have, because as you can tell, I have a fire within me, and that fire was slowly burning out over the period of 7 years. And I'll never forget that, there was a time 3 years ago where I woke up one morning with all the stress, and I didn't want to live anymore. I ultimately went into the shower. I cried like a baby. I have humility in it now to speak about it.
Mhm.
And I cried out to God, and I told him, I said, if I don't have a purpose here, you better show me it, because I don't want to live anymore, because I can't take any more of the pressure anymore, because I was in a cooker, it was years of remodification and foreclosure notices and no food on the table,
Mhm.
and feeling less as a man, trying to lead my family without, being able to provide, and being broken. I mean, quite literally down to your foundation, to your keel, to your spine. And in that process, I found redemption in the darkest of places, and God whispered to me in that shower, and he told me, he said, son, you're going to be a vessel to unite the nation. And I'll never forget that. I just wept. And he showed me three distinct visions after that. One of them was myself standing on the reflecting pool in the National Mall, and I could see through the vision. I was looking out, and I could see President Trump. This is before he was elected. I could see President Trump in the center, and it was a great day of revival. There was a national calling. People were being baptized in the water. There was a sea of red people that's beyond any measure. And in that moment, he said he's going to run. He's going to unite my nation with my name over the land. And I never forget that. I told this true testimony to my pastors, to my loved ones, and everybody thought I was crazy back then. And ultimately, he won, and ultimately, he's bringing God over the land. And while he's not perfect like many of us, God uses broken vessels,
Right.
and
Yeah.
so at the end of the day, that was one of the first visions, and then I ended up seeing I couldn't tell at the time. I saw a vision of a vessel, but I couldn't make out what it was. And then the third one happened in real time. I was at the IKEA one day having lunch after my fiance wanted to go shopping and everything, and I was having lunch inside the cafeteria. And if anybody that realizes what the IKEA's generic makeup is and how it pertains to where the vessel sat in Philadelphia, you could literally look out the window and you see this big majestic vessel. And I had never known about the United States really that much before then. I just was a bare new experience for me. And, I looked out the window. I saw this big, beautiful vessel, because I've always been drawn to the sea. I've always loved nautical things and ships. And I looked at the placard, and the placard said United States. And it drew in that moment. And in that moment, I had that audible again. It said, son, this is your mission. And I kid you not, this is true. And I started to learn about the vessel. I started to learn how the United States was connected to the United States Merchant Marine and our long history, and how she was the flagship. And I dug into their history, and I found out about how they've been neglected, how they've been branded the forgotten service. And simultaneously, I'm learning about two phenomenal, both institution and symbols of any nation who have been neglected to time. And for me, I took that to heart, where I was like, I've been neglected for 7 years. I've been neglected, for this time, even since my birth, because I've gone through a lot of different things, since childbirth. And, I said, I'm going to be the voice. And ultimately through that, we all started, talking, chattering. And then that's how we got together with the groups, and we formed the foundation. And then ultimately, we got past the gate and onto the ship to experience our first time. But, that's ultimately how it started for me. Was she literally saved my life, and I can tell you that truthfully. She literally saved my life, and God used her and is using me right now with others to bring a symbol and a spirit of hope back over the land. And that's why I hope every American that's listening now can hear the sound of my voice and honest to God know the truth that we are better than what we present at times, and we have a purpose. And no matter how broken you are, you can persevere. I know I did. I just had surgery back in August. Spine fusion surgery from L4 to S1. Scariest surgery of my life. I literally lost 3 liters of blood on the table. I thought I was going to die. Doctors. I was in ICU for 11 days. They were monitoring me closely. I mean, it was a miracle. Church laid hands on me, and I came out, walked in 3 days, and out in 7. whole great testimony. It wasn't in the one I sent you last night, but
Mhm.
what I learned in that experience is that no matter how broken they say you are,
Yeah.
there's always that inner strength. There's always that keel, that spine, that foundation that you can grow from and build on, no
Right.
matter how much the storm presses against you. And that's ultimately why I feel the way I feel about the United States. Is I feel her story's not over. I feel her keel is still strong. And I
Mm.
feel that we can learn as Americans to move on and to rebuild and understand that despite what the outside looks like, it's
Mm.
the inside that matters. It's the inside that's strong.
Mm. Wow. That's an incredible testimony, truly. And thank you for choosing this podcast to, share it for the first time. As I read it, it was just so well written. And then knowing you personally too, and just being around you and knowing just even the short time that I spent around you, just seeing your passion, the spirit of excellency that you have on you, that you want to do things and you want to do them well and you want to do them thoroughly, and that you don't give up. It seems that you have your mindset and God has given you something to purpose your life and steer it, in
Absolutely.
the right direction. So that's a really, really beautiful story. And I'm like, as you were sharing, when you saw her and you were sitting at the IKEA, was she docked at Philly at that time?
Yeah, so she was docked at Philly at the time.
Yeah. Did you
And
live in Philly at the time? Like how did you end up seeing her that day? Did you all just like spontaneously decide to take a shopping trip to Philly? Like what was that moment? Like how did you even lay eyes on her?
Yeah, so she was in Philly. She's been in Philly for a while before she
Mhm,
transported to Mobile.
mhm,
And my fiance wanted to get some materials, and so she took me along with the ride.
mhm,
And we were having dinner that day, or lunch that day, excuse me, in the IKEA. And that's how I saw her, because she's literally like the way you can actually see it in my testimony pictures. Actually,
mhm, mhm.
there's
I
a
saw the
window,
picture.
a big long pane window, and when you look out, you just see this beautiful vessel there. And it was great because not only did I see it from that vantage point 3 years prior, but later on with the foundation, I got to get past the gate, and I was
Mm,
invited on board to check her out from on board, and seeing the surreal moment from her sun deck out on the last 2 nights before she left
mhm,
was a reflection of who I was and who I am now. And
mm,
so it was like a beautiful, real surreal moment, and she gave that to me. And so I think she has done that for so many, both
mhm,
in the city of Philadelphia, the brotherly city of love, and throughout the nation. I mean, we hear stories all the time from people across the pond, England and Europe, and here across the nation, people, they're beautiful stories of how much they love this ship, and how they're connected, and so on and so forth. I mean, she's really inspired and touched the hearts of many,
mm,
which is why ultimately we are doing what we're doing. And that's why, like, it's actually inspired me to do something together with not only what I do here in New Jersey as
mhm,
ambassador, my other roles, but also as the foundation to bring people together. And that's, I serve for ambassador roles here in New Jersey for veterans and Latinos for America First. And
yes.
so I work with a lot of veterans in that aspect. And veterans find a very close heart string with me.
Mhm,
And that's because my family service, they've had, I've had a lot of service members go through my family. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen the struggles of war, how they come home broken, how
mhm,
they're just changed by war. And I see it through close friends that have served, and also veterans alike. And, as I learned more about the Merchant Marine Academy in Kings Point, I learned about the dedication and honor that these midshipmen perform, because I mean, this is an academy that literally produces our Army, our Navy, our Marines, our armed, every other armed force service you can imagine, the Coast Guard, you name it.
mhm,
Majority of them come out of Kings Point. They actually have the most cadets that can actually choose which direction they want to go in the branch services. So when I learned their story, even all the way back to World War II and everything, I realized that, in the landscape that we have today, where our veterans are sleeping on the street, they're
mhm,
homeless, they're committing suicide, they're jobless, it really struck a chord with me. And especially when I had the great honor of, being inducted as, New Jersey ambassador for Veterans for America First, I took that to heart. And with the mission we have currently for the Preservation Foundation, I actually have drafted up legislation recently in two forms. One congressional proposal for congressional offices, which I've been actively working through the congressional offices, and that's the America 250 Maritime Heritage Act.
Yeah, super cool.
Proposal. Yeah, which you might have a picture of the proposed plan of it.
It was a federal document. I wasn't sure, whether
you don't have to show the document, but there should be an image there I sent you with the rendering of what it looks like with the big flag and everything else, but has a ship in place. But if I didn't send it to you, it's no big deal. It could be found on our webpage. Okay. But long story short, what we would like the federal government to do in honor of America 250 is ultimately take the vessel back, the United States, as a national maritime monument to excellence, and ultimately establish American trade schools on board, STEM programs, youth programs, and particularly veteran reintegration programs. Let's teach them, trade schools again. Let's teach them, job training to get them job placement. Let's give them housing. Let's give them, medical assistance. Let's give them everything we need to do to give them a stable life after they have been done with service. And, that is something that is dear to me. And in the wake of that, and the wake of talking to the offices, I also drafted a executive order draft proposal for the president, which I hope if he ever listens to this, he'll know it's circulating, sir. And I hope that you sign it and sign it soon. Yeah. Because this EO essentially uses his executive powers that currently exist through Title 40 and Title 50, and a unique opportunity through another endeavor that I authored on behalf of the foundation. That's the Operation Liberty Shift. There are strategic vessels that MARAD owns right now, SL7 fast sea lift ships that they're actively getting ready to decommission and sink, or not sink, well, not sink, but to scrap. And ultimately, what we're considering is that if MARAD were to jump in at the president's discretion, according to this EO, they could essentially, you can call it ransom, call it whatever you want, but trade one or more of those vessels to the county to achieve their world's largest artificial reef initiative, and ultimately rescue the United States back into federal stewardship. And that way you can put into act, the America 250 Maritime Heritage Act. And again, these are all things that they're not self-sustaining from us. It's things that we want to do through the federal government. So this way the federal government can give back to the American people and our veterans. This is for the American people and for the veterans for America 250. And it's literally it's a sign and it's done deal if we can just get it to the president. And that's what we're working hard to do, and we're working against the clock, because ultimately this county is trying to sink this vessel possibly in April.
I'm about to say very soon, like as soon as like next month. I was reading that they're just like going full steam ahead, despite what activists and other people and scientists are saying. So that's I hope this opportunity to talk about it, hopefully this spreads the word a little bit more. Like I told you when we met, like my platform is small, but it's open to you, because I had never heard about it. And I thought it was interesting when you started to tell me about it. And I'm like, man, I wonder if more people know. And I wanted to do my part in being able to help you get that story out to people who may want to, partner with you and come alongside you to and your organization to bring this to the attention of the American people, because I do feel that if more people knew, more people would care and would be wanting to see this ship and remain a part of American history. Because look at what we've done for the Queen Mary. So we're not trying to do something that hasn't already been done. It can be done, and we can integrate a decommissioned ship into society and make it a vital part of society, even if it's just for tourism purposes above water, not underwater. It doesn't have to be underwater to be used for tourism purposes. And so I really hope that this cause goes forward and that you will continue just trucking along and moving forward. I know you said that it's been a battle. For my last question, I want to know, do you feel that it's a battle that you're going to win? Do you feel
I
that it's
do.
a battle that you're going to win? And then what has been the hardest part of this calling for you?
Yeah, so great questions. I absolutely do. I think we are going to win. I mean, we're drawing closer. I think both because of my testimony and because of the testimony of millions of Americans across the nation and over generations has defined the American spirit is something. Every trial that we've ever been, faced with,
Mm-hmm.
we rose with, through the adversity. We persevered. And I think history shows that. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, there's been plenty of times in the past where the 11th hour, miracles have happened for many national, monuments and different entities that were significant that we enjoy today.
Right.
I think one of the greatest examples is Ford just spent $5 billion revitalizing the Detroit, Michigan terminal in Detroit, Michigan. I mean, it was dilapidated. I mean, people wrote it off and said, it would be crazy. Now it's one of the most beautiful places in all of Detroit and probably the nation for gatherings. So, I mean, I believe firmly that, with the right eyes and the right hands, and particularly under this administration, I do. I believe that we could write a story for America 250 and such a time like this too. I mean, it's a pinnacle time. So I think, given the tools of what we've gone through and what I've gone through personally and what we continue to fight for, we have an opportunity here to write a new chapter in our history, in our story.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to start with the 20,000 plus that have signed online petitions
Mm-hmm.
to say, hey, we want to save this vessel, as well as the New York City Council, who has also asked the President and Congress through their Resolution 649A to please save the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So if that EO gets up there to the President, I mean, that is the trigger and the funding pathways and legal pathway to support that symbolic gesture by the New York City Council. So I think relatively altogether, the American spirit throughout, if we really just stop for a moment and realize where we're standing in this history, we can come together and we can do something great, and something not just great for public image, but something great that will expand over generations.
Mm-hmm.
So, we need to just see the prize ahead, and the prize isn't, self-promotion or vanity in a sense, or in the sheer moment. It's about the legacies we leave and the very legacies we uphold. And ultimately, she represents a legacy of an era that has been lost to time, but needs to be, rekindled.
Beautifully said. Carlos Camacho Jr., thank you so much for coming on the Ratchet Christian podcast, for informing us of this this opportunity to preserve history and letting us know more about you. It's a pleasure to get to know more about you. I spent a weekend with you in December at AmFest, and all of us, our little group, have remained in contact since. I think one of the best things is just us still having like our group chat from AmFest that always makes me smile. And anytime I hear from you all in there, it makes me happy. And so it's just a pleasure to just get to talk to you again, to hang out with you again, to learn more about who you are as a person and something that you're so passionate about. And I appreciate you coming on to my platform and sharing your story. Can you let the people know that are watching where they can find you, where they can find your organization? And I'll, in the description, I'll also make sure that I link your YouTube channel because I do have I subscribed to it last night, and so they'll be able to find more information on there. But where are you on social media, and where can people find you?
Yeah, so if you search SS United States Preservation Foundation, Inc., you'll find both a group page and a regular homepage for us on Facebook. If you go to www.ssunitedstatespreservationfoundation.com, you'll find our webpage there, along with our petition and our GoFundMe, and also the body language for the act that I talked about. We are also on X, and you can find that link directly from the website and the Facebook page. Yeah, I mean, there's multiple ways. You can also reach out via the number on the website at the bottom of the page, as well as the email that's there. You can contact me. I can answer any questions you might have. One thing I wanted to also throw in there real quick, and I actually just put it in the private chat for you a little bit ago,
Yes.
was the change.org petition page, which also links to different pages of ours. If you scroll down to the bottom for anyone listening, there is a new update that just came out, and it's only going to be for 15 days. It actually just went into effect on the 13th, so on Friday. They're asking for public comment, the United States Army Corps of Engineers. So if every American can raise their voice, go on there, fill out what you feel about this situation, speak to them and let them know, why you may want to save this vessel. It goes a long way in the federal conversations. It is only open, like I said, for 15 days, so it'll close on March 28th, which is actually right before my birthday.
When's your birthday?
March 29th.
Oh, yeah, literally right before.
So I'm hoping I get an early birthday present, which would be great. But yeah, I mean, your voice matters. Every American voice matters. Every person across the pond matters. It doesn't matter where you come from. If you have a love for the United States, and if you have a love for heritage, please go to that link, write the Army Corps, and let your voice be heard. And ultimately, if you write your congressmen, your senators, your representatives, and ultimately the president, please, every voice matters. Let them know what's going on. Support our cause, because ultimately our cause is your cause.
Beautifully said. I'll make sure that I include the link that you sent me in the chat also in the description of this video, where they can find your YouTube channel, so on and so forth. Carlos, thank you so much for coming on. It was a pleasure to have you. You're always welcome back. Keep us updated. Let me know what's going on. And I wish you all the best in this endeavor. I think it'll be really cool to see this vessel saved and to know that I know someone who played a major role in doing so. So thank you so much. Hopefully I'll be talking to you soon. I'll hop in our group chat right after this and send you the link where you can watch the video. So thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. Hopefully I'll talk to you soon.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Have a good one. Bye-bye. Oh, also, wait, if you're watching, make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Let me find the little button that says that. Yes, please make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, share your thoughts and opinions with us. I love hearing from you guys in the chat. I respond back. And so thank you for watching. I'll see you very, very soon on our next episode. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, Carlos.
Wanna see everybody throw it up. If you ain't folks, can't go with us. After school program, just don't do